we pay globally is a matter of public record, and it's in the billions of dollars. The amount of tax we pay in the UK is a matter of public record, and it's £6 million last year. And
you're repeating yourself.
What I'm interested in is you are developing a bank in Bermuda. It seems to me a cash pile which adds to the capital gain in terms of your shareholders, but can't be remitted to your shareholders without them paying further tax on it.
I think that's a matter for our US organisation and the parent company, and that's not something that I'm a party to.
Am I right in thinking that your tagline is "Do no evil"?
That is a phrase that is used to kind of crystallise the sort of values of Google and how we try to operate. Correct.
Because it seems to me that you're not, if I can just put it very gently, you're not matching up to that. If you rack up cash in Bermuda, what that does is it means that, I don't know if you, but senior executives of Google will have lovely bonuses which will be based on the surpluses made before tax, and yet your shareholders, who you claim you are trying to protect the interests of by operating in low tax regimes, your shareholders can get no benefit from it.
I'm not sure I understand fully the question. What I'd say is, firstly, on do no evil, I think we're proud to try to operate to a high standard. We may not always get it right, but I think that what that means for us is offering an amazing service that allows you to search 1 trillion URLs on the web in a second on any device around the world.
Not on tax, Mr. Brittin. We're here to talk about tax.
As I've said, we pay all the tax we're required in every country.
I understand that, but we don't think you pay the tax that is just.
What we think you are is cleverer than the taxpayer, than the taxmen and women around the country, which is very good if you're saying we do no evil. We look up. What I am now asking you is, okay, so you say it is in our interest to reduce our tax liability. That helps our shareholders. I'm trying to get you to answer what your shareholders get out of the money that you remit to Bermuda. It sounds to me like nothing.
As I say, I'm not an expert on the way that operates, but what I would say is we're required to pay tax on the basis that we, where the economic activity that's carried out that generates profit, and that's for our customers. That's the guidance from the HMRC. What the HMRC says is that's not tax avoidance, it's simply the way that corporation tax works. So we follow the way that corporation tax works internationally. I wish, as I said, that Google was a British business. We would then be having a different conversation, but the innovation is in the US, which is appropriate.
Could you perhaps provide the committee with a note about how your shareholders benefit from the Bermuda holdings?
I'm happy to do so if there's a specific question.
Before I do, can I just know, do you use other tax havens? Do you use the Channel Isles?
Not that I'm aware of, but we do operate in a lot of countries around the world.
Bahamas?
What I'll have to do is come back to you and let you know if you have a list of places you want to check. My understanding is no, but I don't know for certain. Let me come back with a list. If you give me a list, we'll tell you exactly where we operate. We have a business in the Netherlands, but not in the Netherlands Antilles, as far as I know.
Okay, Meg, then Austin, and then we'll move to some general questions.
And Fiona McTaggart just touched on it about HMRC. We're here to guard and follow the public pound, the tax pound in the UK. And Google, I have to declare an interest that I had a sandwich and a cup of coffee at Google campus only last week with the technology or APPG group hosted there. But Google does a lot of work to help and incubate new technology businesses, and that's really partly where we're driving. That you have a structure that's set up in a way as a modern internet business quite different to, well, particularly to the Starbucks business of selling a physical commodity. And one of our concerns is that when our tax authorities are able to pursue the money that is made in our tax jurisdiction in the UK for the benefit of UK taxpayers. And you're saying, you wish that Google was a British business, but you are helping to incubate British and international businesses. Do you give them advice about tax affairs?
We don't give any businesses any advice on tax affairs, but I think it's an important point which you raise. You mentioned campus. We invested in a building in the Tech City area of London, 7 stories building, which is full of startups. And one of the things our founders are keen to do is encourage businesses to take advantage of the internet. And the committee may not be aware of this, but the UK is one of the leading markets in the world in terms of e-commerce, and lots of small businesses. We have 200,000.
Take a lot of money out of us, Mr.
But the point is that this is important for UK businesses. One of the big growth opportunities for the UK UK is the internet economy. We're part of the way in which those businesses reach consumers around the world. A business in Scotland selling kilts now has 70% of its sales outside Scotland, because every time somebody types kilts into Google, they can appear, and they only pay when somebody clicks on the ad. So we're very much part of that success story, and businesses are happy to spend their money because it's profitable.
Chair, the figure is dropping, but I learned this interesting fact that 42% of people will only buy something off the internet if they can read about it in their own language. But that English is still, although it's shrinking in its percentage, it's still the dominant language. So Google, using English, so in America and the UK, I suppose, as the main English-speaking countries, is helping to drive that.
Yeah, well, actually, we invest a lot of, again, in California.
And that's economic activity, you could argue. And this is an interesting question about what's economic activity in the internet. Well, where is it based? Where is the internet based?
Absolutely. So you mentioned language, and one of the things we've developed as a free tool for consumers and business is Google Translate. And I'm not sure if people have used this, but it's actually getting quite good. It's a free tool, and it allows a business that is selling to translate its website automatically into multiple other languages, which helps a UK business to export around the world. But I go back to the point about...
I mentioned Lingo24 just for balance, which is also doing so.
Others are available and all these things. It's a free service. But I mean, the key point here, as you think about the questions you're asking us, is where does the economic value come from? It comes from the computer science. Where does the computer science come from? It comes from 17,000 engineers in California who are building these things under the leadership of our team. That's the economic success story for Google. I'm proud to say we're supporting thousands of startups now in the UK through our activity in Tech City, but also through the fact that our paid advertising works in a way that no kind of advertising has worked in the past to help reach consumers around the world.
We're short of time, so I'm going to... Austin, have a quick go, and then we're going to go to some general questions for everybody.
I'd be quick, I'd like a long go. One can't be surprised that you're going to opt for the softest tax regime possible. Our endeavour is to ensure that profits generated here are taxed here. I mean, and they are. A couple of years back, I was told by ITV that Google now had a bigger advertising revenue than ITV, and yet I don't know if that's still the case, but it's a fairly telling statistic. It wasn't paying the taxes that ITV, its competitor for advertising revenue.
That's a really good question, Mr. Mitchell, in the sense that ITV is a commercial broadcaster which generates all of its activity in the UK and was granted a licence by the state for the spectrum it has.
And produces programmes here.
And produces programmes in the UK. And Google is a business that was built in America and continues to be an American business, and all of the activity that develops our technology is led from, and the vast majority of the engineering is done in America. So that's absolutely the contrast. As I say, if Google was a British business, you'd be looking at the profits being generated here. But Google's an American business, and the profits are generated as the HMRC advises and international tax law dictates. We don't have an opportunity to do anything else.
I would want profits generated here by any business, whether it's multinational.
Yeah, of course, and we pay tax on the profits we make here.
To be making a contribution to the revenue. And what we're trying to find out is where the money goes. Now, it goes to Ireland, it goes to Dublin. But does it then, I couldn't make out from our chair's somewhat incredible drawings, and you couldn't see them.
I can't see them.
I couldn't understand them, so we've got something in common to start with. Does it then go to the Netherlands, which has got lots of double tax agreements?
Yeah. So any money that's spent by an advertiser in Europe...
So it's not paying much tax in Ireland either?
Well, the tax rate in Ireland, I think, is 12.5%. There was an arrangement in the past, which I understand is no longer necessary, where there was an arrangement via Google Netherlands. I understand that's no longer necessary. So think of the money being spent with Google Ireland. That money will go to pay some of the costs in Ireland. So we've just actually opened a second data centre in Ireland.
It's not paying much tax, even if
it's paying less
tax is low.
Yeah, the corporation tax
is just passing through.
Correct. The corporation tax rate in Ireland is lower than it is in the UK. And as I say,
but it's still not paying much of it.
Well, the rate we're paying is 12.5%, and the business is continuing to grow. So I expect over time we'll make a bigger contribution, assuming we can be successful.
What can be fiddled through is pay 12.5%, but most of it doesn't pay 12.5%. It then goes on to the Netherlands, and then it goes to Bermuda. Now, the interesting question is what that does for the shareholders, because as Fiona said, doesn't benefit them. They can't get their hands on it because it would have to pay 30% tax to be repatriated to America, to the shareholders, right?
Well,
so it sits there in a cash mountain. It makes no contribution to So all the research and development and new technologies that you've been telling us about that's carried on in California, it just sits there. I mean, it's probably lovely to visit it. And, you know, walk around it and look at it and think, but what contribution does it actually make?
It's a matter for the board of Google, but I imagine if the resources are needed to be used, they can be used. I mean, shareholders...
They couldn't be used in America because you'd have to pay 30% tax.
They could be used in America if that were the case. I mean, shareholders will benefit from the profits after tax that the company generates. And so, you know, the company has choices about where it locates money over time. I think, my understanding... If
Ronnie got in, you'd be able to repatriate it to America, but he didn't get in, so he can't go back there.
There's no question there, sir.
I just wanted to point out, I mean, it's a good argument about economic activity based in California, but you keep on referring to the fact that the income is actually generated from advertising. That's not correct. Californian advertising, is it?
Well,
so it's a slightly misleading argument. I mean, I understand it, but to just keep on saying it's all about, and of course, part of it's generated by the technology. That's the medium. It's also generated by advertisement sales, which are specific to territories. So a significant part of the economic activity is specific to the territory, not all just global. That wouldn't be fair.
So I think you're raising a fair point, and I want to be very clear on this. The economic activity that we carry out in the UK is paid for at what we believe is an appropriate rate, because we look at what we would have to pay if we went outside Google to get it. The advertising, though, just to be clear, it's not the same as buying a double-page spread in the Sunday Times.
No,
right? It's a much more complicated, algorithmically driven system that's almost as complicated as the system of search itself, because anybody can target any keyword anywhere in the world, any phrase that's typed across multiple domains of Google, and they can change their bids, the amount of text they say, which is very, very complicated.
We all use it.
Okay, but it's very complicated compared with what you would traditionally view as advertising, and that's why we believe it's appropriate that the technology that underpins the advertising, just like the technology that underpins search, is driven by engineers out of the US, where we have, as I say, 17,000 engineers.
Right. Okay, Richard. I know. Richard.
You said you've got £396 million of UK revenues. That's right, isn't it?
That's correct.
I'm trying to understand what the costs are of generating those revenues. Those revenues are people paying for advertising, is that right?
No, the business in the UK is people providing services to Google Ireland, which is what I mentioned earlier, and they help consumers and enterprises make the most of the web, encourage them to understand it. They run lots of sort of education on the business side and training, show them the kind of products that are available to you.
£396 million of revenue
is paid by Google Ireland.
Comes from Google Ireland.
That's
all of it?
Yes.
All of it?
Yes.
In return for the provision of services?
Yes, and as I say, we determined that we think that's an appropriate amount based on looking at what we would have to pay to get similar people to do it in the market. So, for example,
actually, what you said was determined on what it would cost if you went and bought the services from.
Yeah, so a consultancy firm or something like that would be.
Well, of course, if you have people in house, they will generally be